Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Kristen. I'm a trainee sports psychologist on the BPS QSEP Stage 2 pathway. If you don't know what that is, check out my previous video. I've explained it all, and in this video I'm going to talk you through starting out as a trainee sports psychologist, how to become a trainee sports psychologist, how to find a supervisor, completing all the paperwork, and some of my tips and tricks from having been a trainee supervisor for a trainee sports psychologist rather, for a couple of months now. So before I dive into all of what this video is going to be, I want to reiterate that I'm talking about the BPS QSEP pathway specifically because that is what I'm on, that's what my experience is with. If you want me to make any videos about the BASIS route, about the CPAR route, or even about different countries' qualifications, just let me know and I can do some research into that and I can definitely make that for you. But just for now, I'll be talking from my own experience with the BPS QSEP Stage 2 pathway. So step one is finding a supervisor. Now this is a very important step because your supervisor is the one that will guide you through everything. They're the ones that will give you the advice, the feedback, the articles. If you are looking for research articles and you don't have access to them, these are very important people. They will be the backbone of your qualification pathway. So I've got a couple tips on how to find them and how to make sure that they're the right fit for you. So first tip on how to find a supervisor is to talk to your lecturers. If you're wanting to become a trainee sports psychologist and you've gotten to the point where you're looking for a supervisor, you will have completed an undergrad in psychology or a different undergrad, a postgrad in sports psychology, and potentially a conversion course as well. So you should have quite a lot of contacts through your university with lecturers, with professors. First step would be to reach out to them. Let them know that you are looking to becoming a trainee sports psychologist. If you have a favorite lecturer, if you have a professor that you get on with really well, that you really respect, that you admire what they're doing, get in touch with them, see if they've got any capacity, any availability to take on new trainees. And if they do, great, brilliant. You can have meetings and you can take it from there. If not, at least they're aware that you're looking for a supervisor. They might reach out to their contacts, put you in contact with somebody that they know. Just reach out to your lecturers because they're the easiest point to start with, because you've already had the whole degree worth of interactions with them. You already know them, they already know you. Secondly, similar to this, reach out to lecturers or professors at other universities. Go onto university websites, look at their staff, see what they're working on, look at their research interests as well, because that's a very important thing. See what they're interested in, see what they work on, see what their main research revolves around, see if that aligns with what you want to do, what your interests are, and then just reach out. Just send them an email, get in touch, explain that you are looking for a supervisor, that you're looking to get started as a trainee, and see what they say. Again, same as with your own lecturers and professors. They might not have capacity or availability to take you on right now, but they will all have different contacts. They will all have different things that they can help you with. Some people might not be able to help you at all because they might just not have the time, which is absolutely fine. It's not personal to you. They're just really busy people. But some people might take the time to list other people that they know have availability. It just never hurts to reach out. Once you have identified a couple potential supervisors, it's important to kind of do your research on them, not in a stalking way, but just figure out what their research interests are, what they've done research on, if they're lecturers, are they lecturing in, who are they, what's their background, what have they done, all that kind of stuff, to see if they would be a good fit for you. Because keep in mind, this is not just about you being a good fit for them and you being able to fit in with them. It's just as much about what they can do for you and how good a fit they are for you. If they are working on things that do not interest you at all, if they are working on a side of sports psychology that you have no interest in, that you don't want to work in at all, they might not be the best fit. They might not be the best contact to have. They might not be the best supervisor for you. Another good tip would be to see if you can find any trainee sports psychologists who are currently or have been in the past been with that supervisor. See if you can get their experience, see if you can ask them about what it was like. Just kind of get a feel and treat it like you would a job interview. If you're looking for a different job, you're not just going to go in blind. Well, you might, but it's always a good idea to reach out to people who are currently with that organization, person, whatever you're looking into, and figure out what the actual lived experience is of those people. Once you've gotten in touch with several potential supervisors, this is where you would arrange meetings, or whether it be online, in person, going for a coffee, whatever it may be, whatever they've got time for, whatever you've got time for. Meet up with your potential supervisors and meet up with all of them. Don't just immediately agree to the first supervisor that you talk to, although I'm pretty sure I ended up doing that, but they're just a good fit for me. Meet up with them, get to know them, ask them questions, because even though you have hopefully done a bit of research beforehand on their interests, their research, all that kind of stuff, it will still be different when you actually talk to them in person. Get a feel for who they are, get a feel for how they work, get a feel for what they could offer you as well. This is important. Make sure to ask them what they will be offering you. Ask them how many meetings they can offer you a year. Ask them if they've got other people that they are supervising, and if there would be any potential peer support or peer meetings or anything like that. See how they work, see what they plan, and see what they do with the supervisees that they already have. The next question to ask them would obviously be their availability, their capacity. Can they take you on? How much support can they give you? How many supervisees do they take on as well? It's a really important one. If they take on 20 people a year to supervise, they might not have the time and effort that they can spend on you that you might need or require. Whereas if they limit themselves to 5 supervisees a year, then they might be able to give you a lot more of their energy and their time, which will be very beneficial to you in the long run. The third really important question to ask is about their fees, because with BPS, the supervisors can set their own fees. So some people charge way more than others. It's really important to figure out your budget for this beforehand, and then also figure out what the supervisors charge and what you get for it in return, because some supervisors might charge a higher fee but give you a lot more in return than somebody else who would charge less money to supervise you but then also would give you less in return. So kind of weigh out what you would get, what you would have to pay, and what you would get in return. See what will work for you, see what's most beneficial for you, and see what you can afford as well, because at the end of the day, as I mentioned in my last video, it is a lot of money. There are a lot of fees, and there are some hidden fees as well that you might not think about at the start that will all add up. The second step after finding a supervisor, after you've found the one that you want to go with, after you've signed off, after you've got to know them, have meetings with them, this is a time where you will start filling out the paperwork. So again, for the BPS pathway specifically, there is a lot of paperwork and a lot of documents that you will have to fill in before you can enroll to become a trainee sports psychologist and actually start doing the work. Because there's so much to do, get started on it as soon as you can, as soon as possible. Figure out what documents it is that you need to complete, figure out what you need to gather, what you need to do. Get in touch with your supervisor about it, because the sooner you start on their paperwork, the sooner you can submit it, the sooner you can become a trainee, the sooner you can start working towards your hours. Because once you've submitted all the paperwork, they will still take a couple months usually to go through it, to review it, and to process your application, and then to accept or deny your application. A very important thing to do when you're filling out your paperwork is to remember to ask your supervisor for advice. Ask them for help, for tips, for examples, anything at all. No question is a stupid question. This paperwork is very confusing. There are things in there that I had no idea what they were even asking me to do. Don't be afraid to ask your supervisor, because they will have gone through this many a time with many other supervisees, with many other trainee sports psychologists. They will know the pitfalls as well. They will know what most trainee sports psychologists or aspiring trainee sports psychologists will get picked up for. They will know what makes the BPS deny applications. So Keep in touch with your supervisor. Send them regular updates as well. If you're going through the paperwork, send them weekly updates of this is where I'm at, this is what I'm working on now, this is what I'm struggling with, I'm not sure about this, yada yada yada. You get the gist. Keep in touch with your supervisor. The third tip I have for you is that to remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is not some graded assignment. This is not something that will affect how good of a sports psychologist you end up being. This is purely to get you onto that trainee sports psychologist pathway so that you can start actually training to become a sports psychologist. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be right. It just needs to be what they ask you for. And it just needs to be accepted at the end of the day. The final tip I have for you is kind of linked to that, and it is if you have any friends or anybody that you know that is also a trainee sports psychologist and that has already handed in their paperwork, see if they would be willing to send you a copy of their training plan or any other documents that you might be struggling with, that you might feel like you need some examples of or support with. See if they would be willing to send it to you. I was lucky enough that one of my friends was a couple months or a year or something ahead of me in the process, so she was she'd already gone through it all. She knew what to look out for, she knew how to complete it all, so she graciously sent me her paperwork, and that was such a massive help for me. So see if you can find somebody who's willing to do that. One very important thing, as always, don't copy. Don't plagiarize. Don't just copy word for word what your friend has put. Just get some inspiration from it, see how it works, use it as an example of how to fill it in for yourself rather than something to copy word for word. Now that you've found a supervisor, you've completed your paperwork, you've submitted your paperwork, and you have been accepted as a trainee sports psychologist, it's time to actually do the work and actually be a trainee sports psychologist. Now, the first couple months will be tough. I am in my 6th month, I believe, of being a trainee sports psychologist, and it is still tough. It is still difficult. It is still confusing. It is a lot of hard work, but it's so worth it, and it will be fine. You will be fine. So I've got a couple tips, a couple things to note during your first couple months as a trainee sports psychologist. Obviously, I can't talk about what comes after because I'm not there yet, but I will make videos once I am. When you start out as a trainee sports psychologist, make sure to keep in touch with your supervisor. I feel like I've spoken about this so many times throughout this video, but keep in touch with them. They're there to help you out. They're there to support you. They're there to give you advice. Make use of them. You're paying them to offer you all those things. So make sure that whatever question you have, whatever you're struggling with, if there's a situation that you're not sure how to deal with, reach out to them, see what they would suggest you do, see what their advice is, see if they've experienced it in the past, because chances are they have, because usually they have been a sports psychologist for much longer than you've even gone through this whole process for. So get their expertise, get their advice, and it will help you out so much. Making sure to keep in touch with your supervisor will also allow them to know what's going on with you. It will allow them to keep up to date with how you're progressing, what you're doing on the trainee pathway, and it will make everything just a lot smoother because everybody's aware of what you're working on. So when you first start out, it might get quite difficult to actually find hours and find people to do the work with and for. So you can kind of go two ways with this. You can either do a freelance route and you can just reach out to sports clubs or individual athletes and figure out if they could use a sports psychologist, if they can use your services. Reach out to as many as possible clubs and coaches and athletes and things like that. The other way you can do it is to find some sort of placement opportunity. So with a placement opportunity, which is what I'm doing at the moment with the University of Edinburgh, you will have set hours, you will have a set number of people that you can work with. So it takes away the stress a little bit of doing the whole freelance thing where you have to reach out constantly and put a lot of time and effort into that. The only issue is placement opportunities are quite hard to come by, or they can be quite hard to come by. So keep an eye out, but also, once again, ask your supervisor, because more often than not, they will be able to help you in figuring out where there are placement opportunities, where they're offering placements, or where they just need somebody, where they need some extra hands, where they need some extra help. So once again, reach out to your supervisor. Once you've found your athletes, your placement, whatever it is, whatever you decide to do, couple things to remember when you first start out. First thing I would say is to remember that you are capable and you are qualified to be a trainee sports psychologist. You are meant to be there and you can help them. You can make a difference, but at the same time, you're still very new, so don't be afraid to ask for advice and ask for help. Don't be afraid in any session when somebody asks you something and you don't know the answer, just tell them, that's a really good question. I'm not sure on the answer right now. I will get back to you. Nobody will blame you for that. Nobody will get mad. Nobody will have any hissy fits or anything. Just be honest. Be honest about what you can do. Be honest about what your status is as well. Be honest that you are a trainee sports psychologist and not a fully qualified one. Know that you're meant to be there and know that you can do the job, but also know that you're obviously just starting out and it's okay to not fully know what you're doing just yet. Something that's really helped me is finding a peer support group. So with my placement that I'm doing at the university, there's 5 of us who are in this trainee position, and it's been invaluable for me because I can reach out to any of them, talk through anything that I'm working on. If I've got an issue, if I've got a situation I'm not sure how to deal with, I can reach out and ask for advice. Obviously, still keep everything confidential. Don't mention any details or names or anything like that. Just ask for advice, ask for their help, but also sometimes it's just nice to have somebody to vent to because they will understand your situation, they'll understand where you're coming from, where your other friends might not fully get it. So find people who are in the same position as you, that you can surround yourself with, that you can build community with, that you can get support from, that you can give support as well, and that you can just talk about what you're going through, talk about what's going on. My penultimate tip would be to be open and ask for feedback. So don't be afraid of getting feedback. Don't be afraid of asking, how did you find this session? Was this useful to you? Was this helpful? How do you suggest I change it? How do you suggest I go about it the next time? Be open to feedback because, again, you're just starting out. You don't have the experience yet. You will, and you are getting the experience as you go along, but be open to any and all feedback because that's the only way you'll be able to improve. And my final tip would be to just get started. Don't put it off. Don't be afraid. Don't feel like you don't belong. Don't feel like you don't have any right to be there or to tell these athletes what to do. Just get started. Throw yourself in the deep end. Get in there and learn as you go. That's, in my opinion, the best way to do it, while still obviously having that support from your supervisor and any peers that you can surround yourself with. I hope that was helpful. That was some of my tips, some of the things that I've done in getting started as a trainee sports psychologist. I do have a couple more tips from my own experience to round off this video. So tip number 1 is to talk to people and reach out. I feel like I'm going to say this in every single video, but networking is really your best friend. Get to know as many people as possible, talk to them about their experiences, learn from them, hear what they've been through, and share your own experience as well. Networking and getting to know people, talking to people is so valuable, especially in something like this where it's still relatively new, it's still a relatively new field. There's no guidelines or handbooks to really tell you how to do things or how to get started or all that kind of stuff. So reach out and talk to people as much as possible. It will help you so much. Secondly, linked to that, connected to that, is don't be afraid to reach out for help or advice. You're just starting out. Everybody's been in the position that you are in right now, and they probably all still remember what it felt like to start out and feel lost and not know what you're doing. My third tip is to not let imposter syndrome get to you. It's very easy when you start out as a trainee sports psychologist to feel like you don't belong, you have no right to be there. Who are you to give these workshops? Who are you to do these one-to-one sessions? let me tell you, you are meant to be there. If you weren't, you would not be a trainee sports psychologist. If you weren't meant to be there, if you weren't capable, you wouldn't have gone through your degree and you wouldn't have gotten onto the trainee sports psychology pathway. All right, so don't let the imposter syndrome get to you. You're meant to be there, you know what you're doing, and if you don't, ask for help, reach out, ask for advice. Finally, this is a logistical one, but a very important one, something that my supervisor has told me from the beginning, and that is to get professional indemnity insurance. So this is especially important if you're not actually employed by somebody else. If you are, your organization might be doing this for you. Check with them, check with your employer. If you're on a placement, they might provide it for you as well. Check with them. But especially when you're doing it in a freelance capacity, make sure that you get professional indemnity insurance. The one that my supervisor recommended was from Towergate. Do your own research into the professional indemnity insurance policies that are out there and see what covers what you need it to cover, basically. All right, so that was today's video. I hope this was helpful. As always, if you have any other questions, if there's anything else that you're unsure about or that you want to know my experience of, just leave them in the comments down below and I will get back to you, or I can make a whole other video if there's any topics that you want me to cover. As I said, don't be afraid to reach out. That includes me, so if you want to reach out to me, I'll leave everything in the description box where you can find me. And I'm happy to chat about anything and everything relating to sports psychology. I love it so much. It's honestly my biggest passion and I'm so excited to be able to do this. So I hope that sharing this knowledge with you is helpful for you as well. And if there's anything else that you want to know, just let me know and I can make more videos in the future. I've got a couple more lined up and I hope to see you in those.